Hi, we are going to see Amazon S3 demo now. We all know Amazon S3 stands for Amazon Simple Storage Service, which is a static content storage over the internet offered by Amazon. Let's see the demos. In the demo, we are going to create a bucket, we are going to create an object, we are going to see the object policies, we are going to see the bucket management too. Let's start with the demo. So I have logged into AWS console. You can see this is my console and I'll be using the Amazon S3. So in the Amazon S3, this is what you see normally. Here, this is my bucket name. You can create the bucket name of your choice too. So let's create a bucket. I'm going to give the name called taste and I'm going to select the region. Now remember, the AWS S3 bucket is always a region specific. It does not belong to a zone because Amazon uses intrinsic redundancy model to keep the copy of the objects of that bucket into two more availability zone. So that's why it provides you 11.9 of the availability. So this is what your bucket and the region would be. Now I'll say create. Oops, it says no. Why? The requested bucket name is not available. Now if you see on the left hand side, I don't have a bucket name taste. Still it says no. It says the bucket namespace is shared by all users of the system. That means across the globe, not only your account, but even if someone else has created a bucket name called taste, you cannot create the bucket name called taste. Any specific reason? That is because each bucket name would have its own unique URL and through which that is accessible over the internet. And that's the reason, since this bucket name is part of the URL, it has to be global across the all AWS account users. We will see the URL also. This is my taste interview part 1. This is the name I have given and I'll say create. It has created now. So this is my bucket created. On the right hand side you see properties. This is the name of the bucket. These are the permission. Currently bucket is accessible to me only. Then there is a website hosting and all other aspect which we are going to come in a while. Now let me go inside the bucket. Currently the bucket is empty. So I am going to upload a few objects. So let me click on the object. I click on the upload and now I'm going to click add files. So in the add files I'm going to select the three objects I have. These are the three files only, but since they are going to be uploaded to Amazon S3, I call them three objects. Now I say start upload. They are available on internet. Let's see the first one, AWS S3.jpg. When I go to the properties, it's an object. Plus, it is part of this bucket. This is the key, that is the name of the object. And this is the URL through which the object can be accessed over internet. Now you can see in this URL, this is my bucket name and this is my object name. When this is created, owner, there is a e tag which is a uniquely identification for this. There is a expiry date, there is a expiration rule which we are going to cover in a while. Then if I go more in the details, you would see there are three class of storage. We learn about the three storage types. Standard gives you 99.99 durability. Standard infrequent also gives you same durability, but it charges you more or less, much lesser, but only rule is the object has to be 128 KB minimum, whatever. If I selected 14.7 KB, it would still consider as a size of 128 KB minimum, and it would be charging for 30 days full, whether you did it before or not. Reduced redundancy gives you the much lesser durability, but price is also reduced. We also learn about the server side encryption. So in the server side encryption, we have a AES 256 and the none. We learned that the AES 256 provides the three kind of a encryption mechanism for you. Let's see the permissions. So currently it is only available to me. That means no one else can access this. So I'll just click on the URL here, and you can see it gives me, this is the URL. You can see this is my URL, and in this URL it says access denied. Why? It says access denied because this object is still not publicly available. Let me make this object publicly available. So for that I have to go to permissions and say add permissions. So where I will say granting, that means I am granting to everyone. There are five kinds of grantee. One is a me, this is the user J, this is the log delivery. This is when you have enabled the bucket for the logging purpose, it would be there, and also some authenticated AWS user. This would be more like an IAM user. When we go to IAM, we would see that also. So I'm going to make it everyone. Now permissions are also of four types. We learned that access control list. It's a open or download. It's a view permission and edit permission. Currently we want to see open and download only. That means once I make this everyone, anybody on the internet can see this object. Let me show you. If I just refresh this, and you can see this is available now. So this object, now I hope you understand the concept of the S3. This is the storage over the internet. Any file, any object which you have made, you can store over the internet using Amazon S3. Now you would be surprised where this would be useful more. So let's see. Okay, I'm okay. I have saved this. Did you Amazon forget? Or did I forget? Or did Amazon forget something? Let me just refresh in case Amazon forgot something. I'll go to the S3, and what I'll say in the permissions, I'll say add more permission. Oh, wait. Not this one. Let me go to the permission of the index.html first. I have a use case to show. So I'm just giving the full permission. And now if I click on this index.html, you can see it has opened. This is my index.html which is accessible over internet. Now you have an HTML file and you want to store it here. You just store it and you access directly over the internet. You don't need to go to put your on your web server. Generally you are hosting a website, something, you have a static HTML files. Instead of putting those on your web server, you can put those files here and directly access with the URL. And Amazon does support Route 53, so you can map this URL with your own URL too. Now if you see, there was some issue here. What was this issue? It has not loaded an image, and that is the what case I am going to show. That HTML was using this s3.png file. So I'm going to add permission for this file now. Now let's refresh. And you can see the image too. See, the concept here is if you have a static content like HTML file, image files, and those image files, video files are going to be embedded inside your HTML file. This is the case you have to see, where you can put those all over the S3 take the URL, put those URL only inside your HTML. Even if you have dynamic content, right? You have a dynamic website like Apache or someone Tomcat you are hosted, which is using images. You take this URL and put this part of that. It would be serving your purpose. I give you, and you would be surprised where this is useful. And in the past also said, like Netflix is hosting all their videos on S3. So whenever you are seeing the videos of the Netflix, they would be available or streamed through the S3. Dropbox is saving all the documents over S3. So whenever you sync something to the or with Dropbox, it would be stored inside the S3 only. Same way you say Paytm. Now what you are using Paytm or Snapdeal, all images which you are seeing in the Snapdeal or Paytm, those things are inside S3 only and would be helpful. So this all are the cases. So main purpose is you are not loading your web server. Here you are loading your everything through internet only. It is being served. So this is the case of my uh, S3. I'll seeing more part. This is the metadata. Now remember, object is all about metadata. Why is it not called file? It is called metadata because you can add more and more data here. So you can add more metadata if you want to add like content type, expires, content length, or if you want to add your own custom metadata, that too you can add. So metadata is nothing but a set of a name value pairs, and you can create and set up that here. So till now, we have learned about the objects. How do you set the permission for the objects? Now one thing you remember, the policy or access control for object and bucket is different. So for example, I go to s3.jpg, or rather I would just show you, this is my URL of the object. I remove the last object name and I just say this. So this is the URL of my bucket. And now if you see, since this is the URL of the bucket, it has to be unique across the globe because everybody would be accessing this bucket using this URL only. So due to this, if you see, it's a unique, but most important, it is not accessible over internet. Why? I'm just removing this permission and I'll show you some more date. So here I have a AWS S3.jpg for which I have removed the permission and it is not accessible over internet. Now my point which I wanted to show here is, even if all objects are public, still bucket was not public. That case we showed. Now I'm going vice versa. When I make the bucket public, where I'm saying allows everyone to list the bucket. If I just refresh the bucket URL, it would show me the content of the bucket. That is the bucket. It is having an object called AWS S3.jpg, S3.png, index.html. It is having everything, but it is not having. And what are the rights? That's not defined here. That for the right you have to go to inside each and every object. Now AWS S3.jpg is not public yet. So what I can do is, if I just refresh that part again, it is still not public. That is what I'm trying to communicate, that even if you have all objects public, that does not mean the bucket is also public, and vice versa. If the bucket is public, does not mean all the objects are of that bucket are public. Now you would be surprised, or you would be thinking, if I want to make all the objects public, if I have to go to each and every object particularly and give the rights, that is not a great way for me. Is there a better option? Better option is bucket policy, which you would be seeing when we go to the IAM video, because that when we are doing the JSON bend kind of a templating and the coding for that. Amazon S3 does support the course configuration. That's a cross origin request service part that is also supported with the Amazon S3. Now comes an interesting aspect, static website hosting. Now if you see, you have an index.html. This is like your website where you have hosted. Suppose you have a website which is completely static. There is no dynamic component there. Or in some cases there might be a dynamic component but not on the your website. Like it might be using AngularJS, it might be using some of the jQuery REST calls which it is making to the server, but otherwise page is complete static. In that case, if it's only HTML something, you don't need a server to host this, then why do you go and host it everything on Apache? Host it in the most cost effective way, the cheapest way, using Amazon S3. So what you have to do is you have to put everything in your bucket and you go and say enable website hosting. Now I would give the name of the index document, that's a index.html. If I have any redirect or anything, I'll set up that and I'll say save. Now what happens when I enable static website hosting, it would give me a unique URL, unique endpoint. And you can see this unique endpoint does not have slash index.html part of that. You would say, oh, this is just changing a URL. What is the difference it is bringing to me? There are multiple things. First is you don't have to go to each and every, you don't have to specify bucket name, object name, something like that. You get a complete unique URL. One more aspect is if you want to map this URL to your own custom URL like intellipart.com, just an example, and we are going to do in Route 53 demo. So you can, if you have enabled the static website hosting, then Amazon Route 53 allows you to map your static website with the your configurations. So this is your static website hosting too. You can also enable logging. So if you want to log who all requested this bucket and all that, you can enable this part and it would be storing in some other bucket if you want to store that. Events are a curious case. Suppose you upload an image to Amazon S3 and you want to create a thumbnail out of that. Or you upload an image and then after upload you want to notify something like a database that this process is completed, now do next task. So there you can take certain actions and then events can be, you can configure the name of the events, and event can be of three types. Amazon simple notification service where you want to just get an email or some notification. Amazon simple queue service which is for the queuing of your objects. And Lambda function. Lambda is a serverless architecture provided by Amazon where based on certain events triggers it would execute your code. So your code might be written and put inside the Lambda function and it would get executed. So the best example is you upload an image and it would call a Lambda function which would create a thumbnail of that image. That is the concept of the events part. If you remember, we spoke, this also supports the versioning. So if I enable the versioning, I'll say okay. Now what happens? Whatever you upload here would have a two kinds of a versions, or not two, multiple kind of a version. So now when I go, if I upload that AWS s3.jpg again, so it has uploaded, the time is changed, but if I just go and click on the version show, it would show me two versions. This is the newer version, this is the older version. Now each new version would have a new version ID attached with that. So that means in future if I want to restore this, version, I can also download and upload and do that part. If I don't need this version, I should delete it because older version also does cost you. Then there is a life cycle rule where if I want to set up that when this object is created, it should be deleted after some time or it should be moved to a different storage. That's a Amazon Glacier. You can set up that here. So I can say after 30 days, just delete this file. What are the objects are there? Because these are the log files temporarily used. I don't want them for longer period. I can do that. Or even if I want to move them to a different or cheaper storage option, that also I can do that. But we are going to see that when we go and talk about the Glacier storage in our future videos. Cross region replication. Suppose you want to copy the objects, backup of your object to separate region. Suppose something happens and you just want to make a backup, you can say enable cross region replication. This is supported only when your versioning is enabled. So it would be doing for that. You have to set up enable cross region replication, and you have to specify whole bucket or only some objects, means some folders of this bucket, what do you want to move and when do you want to move. When you select a region, you have to also select the destination for those regions also. So what are the buckets you are going to do that. So this also supported for you the cross region replication. If you want to give your own tags, you can do specify the tags also here. You can also specify requester page. Now that's a curious and important case. Suppose you have hosted a huge file called terabytes of file. Now you want to ask someone to, or gigabytes of file, something. You want ask people to download this. This is a test data available, but you don't want to say and okay, because Amazon charges you for the IO cost also, input and output cost. You don't want to pay for this download cost because you are just doing a voluntary service for people giving free huge database to access and experiment. Now in this case of the requester page, what would happen is if you use this requester page, then anybody who requests this object, it would be chargeable to that user only, not to you. The download part I'm saying, you are paying only for the storage cost. The download cost that user has to pay, so that Amazon would be charging you either through his Amazon account or using Amazon Dev Pay service. So till now we saw about the bucket part. Let's see some other interesting aspect. If I have created another bucket, and if you see the storage class is different for them, what have I done here is I went to the properties, and here in the details I have selected a different storage class. When I have selected a different storage class, it would be chargeable me for the storage class as per the standard infrequent access, and same is the case for the reduced redundancy too. I can also copy paste objects. Suppose I have a one bucket in the US East region, one other bucket in US West region. Let me make a bucket. So I'm going to create this in the Singapore region. Now what happens? I want to keep a backup on my own selected. What I can do is I can just say actions. I say copy, and I go to the new region, and from the actions I say paste. You would see they are copied exactly in the same way. So one is a standard infrequent and another is a standard. So the same storage size would be copied here. The permission is also copied as it is. If you don't need the objects, you should keep deleting them, and you should also, or I can show you one thing. Let's set one at least lifecycle rule where it allows to delete. The second lifecycle rule we will be seeing with the Glacier. So I go to the lifecycle, I'll say add rule, where I say rule applies to whole bucket. Yes, I want to do that. Whether you want to apply to a particular object, particular folder, or whole bucket, that you can define. And I say after 30 days or after 1 day, transfer all objects to standard infrequent storage option. It has to be 30 days, so yeah. And also I say after 40 days, delete all the objects. That means what happens? Today is March 19. On the April 18th, it would be delete. They all would be moved to the started infrequent access, and on April 28th, they would be deleted also. When I set up, review these rules. This is the warning they're giving. I say, yes, I understand. I can review and I can say create and activate rule. So what happens after 30 days, this would be moved to the infrequent access, all the objects, whether it is there or not, and after 40 days, it would be deleted too. So let's see what all things we covered. We created a bucket, we created an object, we did the object management upload and the policy, we used the copy paste function, used the access control list for these objects. We did the bucket management, we bucket management policy with the access control list, the main policy is still pending. We did the website hosting, we did the lifecycle part, and we did the versioning of the objects too. I hope you all enjoyed this. Thank you.